Okay.
And don't, they said they're here.
We are ready to go.
Perfect.
You guys hear me?
Yeah, I hear you fine.
Great.
Okay.
Nice to meet you. How you doing, Anthony?
I'm good, Tony. Thank you so much. It's been a long time coming, and we appreciate you being here. If you don't mind, I just want to go through some of the formalities of the interview. I know you're on a tight time schedule, but I just want to get through this because it's something that a lot of the viewers and a lot of the audience have been waiting to be a part of. So here we go. I'm Anthony Conklin, and this is the Anthony Conklin Show with my co-host, Miss Vicky Fitch. Our goal is to help entrepreneurs reignite their passion and their purpose by building a bridge called Why. On the show today, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very, very special guest. He's not only entrepreneur, philanthropist, best-selling author of his amazing book, Money Master the Game. He is the nation's #1 life and business strategist. Welcome, Tony Robbins. Tony, thank you so much for joining us.
I'm doing great. How are you, Anthony? Got a classic first name there.
Yeah, I learned from you. So, Tony, I want to get right into the interview. Again, I know you have you have a limited time here. A lot of people are going to ask some questions. I'm going to try to keep it tight. If you can hang around for 2 or 3 minutes after the interview to maybe answer a question or two, we greatly appreciate it. If not, well, then we'll just have to do a follow-up interview after that. So Tony, listen, you've inspired me personally for 35 years. And now, I recognize from all the things that you've done, you've inspired people. I know you've motivated people, but you've done so much more. You've got people into a state to get them to make significant changes in their life, change the trajectory of their life. But now I recognize that's something that I want to do. It's something I personally want to do. So if you could just maybe share with our audience, what was that defining moment for Tony Robbins to say, I want to do this? What was that aha moment for you?
I think that sometimes you have multiple defining moments. Sometimes it's not as simple as one. But when I was really a young kid, I grew up in a really tough environment. And I have a younger brother, younger sister, 5 years younger and 7 years younger. And my mom loved us dearly. But I had 4 different fathers. And my mom was a handful. She was abused alcohol and prescription drugs and got quite violent in those situations. And so I really became a practical psychologist because I had to figure out how to take care of my brother and sister and myself. And so, I look back on it. If she'd been the mother that I, quote, hoped I'd have, I wouldn't be who I am today. She gave me enormous hunger because I hate suffering because I experienced so much in my own life. And so early on, I needed answers, and I didn't have any role models. So I would go to a library because I'm old enough to remember before the internet. And I'd go to the library and I'd camp out there and I would just feed my mind because I was just so stressed and so frustrated and so worried all the time. And I would read biographies, and my goal was to read a book a day. I took a speed reading course, and I didn't read a book a day. But over 7 years, I read 700 books in the area of human development, psychology, physiology, and I became obsessed with just take something and use it. I just didn't want more knowledge. I wanted to really be able to make changes. And I started with me, and I was, believe it or not, I'm 6'7", but I was 5'1" my sophomore year in high school. And I tell people the difference between me and Ben was personal growth. I tease about it. But I grew 10 inches in a year because I had a tumor in my brain, in my pituitary gland, but I didn't know any of this. All I knew was I was obsessed with finding answers. And I got great answers. I lost weight, and all of a sudden girls were paying attention to me. And then I helped my buddies do that. And so they lit up like Christmas trees. And
That's a good thing. That's a good thing, right?
And I love seeing people lit up. To this day, I obviously don't have to work another day of my life, but I live to see people lit up, to see them in these beautiful states and see how from that place you can change your life so radically. And so I started to become obsessed with, studying any tool. I used to listen to audio tapes. Besides reading, I would immerse myself. In those days, it was cassette tapes. I went to seminars I had no money for, but I figured, shit, if I don't have any money, if I don't go to the seminar, I'll never learn the tools to be able to change that. And so over a period of time, I became quite skilled in a variety of tools, including NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. And my career took off when I challenged a traditional psychologist or psychiatrist and said, give me your worst patient, I'll handle them in less than an hour. And, it happened to me in Vancouver. The man had worked on a woman for 7 years with a lifetime phobia, a snake phobia, where she'd go to sleep at night and the snake would bite her on the face. And, if you've ever had an extreme dream, it wakes you up. And this is happening 3 or 4 times a night for 7 years. And I worked with her for 15 minutes and then wrapped a snake around her. And I found my signature. All of a sudden, I could do media. I could do anything. I started turning around sports stars back in 1984. That's how long ago it was, in the LA Olympics. I turned around a guy named Mike Glickman who wasn't supposed to make the swimming team, and he won the gold medal. And then next thing it led to, a variety of people. President Clinton, Princess Diana, Nelson Mandela, Mother Teresa, and it just grew and grew and grew. And then along the way, I started learning how to build businesses because I was interested in being able to touch people's lives, and business became a great metaphor. So I built those up now to where we do a little more than $5 billion a year in business, and I'm involved in 18 companies. So I've become an entrepreneur as well, but it's all been driven by these moments along the way where I figured out I could pull it off, and I could help someone do what they thought was impossible, not by a pump up, but by a strategy, by something that truly changed, and also by changing their psychology. Because I found 80% of success in any profession is psychology, 20% is the mechanics. I'm a strategist. I know one strategy can save you a decade in business or life, but you won't use the strategy if you don't have the right psychology. And so I teach people both of those fundamental skills in both life and business.
So why do people get, so by the way, thank you, Tony, for explaining that. And I've been, again, following you. I know Jim Rohn was sort of a launching point for you and helped you propel your life. And we've all been a big Jim Rohn follower. I think everybody in this room has been a Jim Rohn follower. We all love him, and rest in peace, but he's been an amazing impact on our lives. So you talk a lot about getting yourself into state. So those defining moments in your life, or say, you got to get yourself into state. You use things like hitting your hand or doing something physical, get in your state. So I guess the thing that leading into my next question is why people get stuck. Entrepreneurs, they get stuck, Tony. You think about it. Everybody puts all this energy into doing things, and usually the fourth year into it, and they're like, fuck it, I don't want to do it anymore. They get all pissed off and they give up. And they're probably 1 inch or one action away from success. So what are some of the strategies that you can offer to these entrepreneurs who are really going down that road saying, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it. Well, let me put in a Tony Robbins DVD, or let me go look at a Tony Robbins, or let me go to Business Mastery. And they just can't get out of that state of mind. What are some of the strategies you think that we can instantly put into action?
I think the first thing is for them to understand the trap they put themselves in. And nobody wants to hear this, but almost everybody overestimates what they can do in a year, and they underestimate what they can do in a decade. And when you're in your 20s or even 30s or early 40s for that matter, you think, my God, I've worked at this forever, nothing's worked. But there's a tipping point. There's a tipping point for people that just persevere. As corny as that sounds, every great entrepreneur I know, the one thing that makes them great is they've never lost their hunger. And that hunger is a drive that whether they get rewarded or not, they still move forward. Because their mindset is, I'm going to change until I get there. What I did when I was in my lowest place, which was like when my mom kicked me out, she thought I was on my dad's side. It was Christmas Eve. She chased me out with a knife. I knew she wasn't going to hurt me, but I had to figure out what to do. So I slept on the hill, and then it rained. Then I slept in a person's laundry room, a friend of mine. And then what I did was I said, I have got to feed my mind. So I created this little 5-step process back then. And I've done this a couple of times in my life when I really hit a wall. But most of the time, the wall doesn't happen anymore because I've done these things so consistently. But the very first thing you have to do as an entrepreneur is you've taken on a task most people never take on. I mean, think about it. Most people would not join a sport where the longer you work at the sport, the more likely you die. That's what business is. 50% of businesses are gone in a year. 80% are gone in 5 years, 96% are gone in 10 years. So only 4% survive, and that doesn't mean they're successful. That doesn't mean they're profitable. It just means they survive.
They're just hanging around. They're just hanging around.
After 10 years, that doesn't guarantee anything. Look at Lehman Brothers, a 100-year-old company who did $1 trillion in business over the decades, and it's gone. So you have to become a gladiator. A gladiator is the only sport where somebody goes in knowing the more often I do this, the more likely I die, but I'm not going to. Right? There's this will, there's this intensity. But to do that, you've got to build the muscle. And so the first way I did it was, the first step I always tell somebody, the most simple thing I could tell you in a quick podcast, overly simplistic but real, is every single day you got to feed your mind. I don't mean the crap that's sent to you on Twitter. I don't mean little things that pull you and distract your attention. I mean, you must pursue for 30 minutes a day. Jim Rohn taught me, leaders and readers, 30 minutes a day read. Now, I was so busy, it's like, when am I going to read? But I was in my car, so I started listening to audios in those days. And I'd do 30 minutes minimum, but I looked for something that was going to inspire me, something that was going to give me a new skill, something new ability. I did it every single day. It became my personal university where I was self-developing. Instead of going to school where someone else is telling me how to think, I pursued it myself. Then when you feed your mind every single day and strengthen it, it's a different game. So you have to do that. But then the second thing you got to do every single day, I tell every entrepreneur, I don't care if you're a man or woman, every single day you've got to do something to strengthen, challenge, and enhance your body. I don't care if you're in your body or not. The reason is your mind and your body are absolutely connected. Fear is physical. when you get really scared, like, oh, we're like, oh my God, am I going to make it? You know, I've had those OF moments where it's like, oh, shit, I need $50,000, keep the doors open. I don't know where I'm going to get $50,000. You know, the whole thing is going to close. In those states, you feel that in your gut, you feel it in your throat. So fear is physical, so is courage, so is determination, so is passion, any form of power. So what I tell people is you got to take at least 10 minutes every single day and do something so physical, brief and physical, to get the blood flowing and strengthens your will. I don't care if that's lifting some weights, it's a quick little sprint, a super intense fast walk. I'm privileged to have multiple homes around the world, and every one of them I have a cold plunge, and I start my day by going in 56-degree or less water. My place in Sun Valley, Idaho, I have a river, and it's colder than 56 degrees in the wintertime. And I never miss, and it's because I train my brain physically. I make myself. When I say I'm going to do something, I'm doing it, and I do it by the habit of it. So if you train your mind 30 minutes and you train your body, now the third thing you need is really a role model. Who's going to be a role model? And nobody is perfect. I don't care who they are. But they're a role model in what's possible. So I grew up starting my business in 1978, 77, 78, when interest rates were 18%. If you can imagine, trying to borrow money at 18%. When inflation was going absolutely crazy, when unemployment was through the roof. So what the hell am I going to do? I looked for a role model who'd made a ton of money in the worst time in history, and I found him in Sir John Templeton. Here's a guy that when World War II broke out, he took $10,000. He borrowed half of it. He'd saved the rest of it for his entire life savings. And he had a belief that you make your maximum amount of money in times of maximum pessimism. When things are going great and you want to buy a piece of real estate, they want a price that's ridiculously high, or a business. When things are going terrible, they'll give you the business. They'll sell you the real estate for almost anything. So
you say timing is everything, Tony. You say timing is everything. I have to just interrupt you for a second. You say timing is everything. I remember looking at one of your videos. You say, 2006, great time, not a good time to buy a house. Because housing prices were out of control. You said if you do the right thing at the wrong time, you have disaster. So it's about timing. It's about timing.
But the timing when it comes to finding a role model that understands the timing. So he understood how to make money, and so I figured out how to make money because I modeled him. Fourth thing you got to do. Really simple. You got to take massive action. You can't leave all the information. You got to start doing something, and when it doesn't work, you do something else. That doesn't work, you do something else. You keep changing. You iterate on the fly. You don't wait till you have the perfect plan, because you'll never start. And then the last step is, when I was in the worst place I could possibly be, I realized there's always somebody worse off than I am. And to get perspective and to be helpful, I would go and focus on helping them. And so I started feeding people way back then. So, that's how I'm now feeding 100 million people a year. This last year, we fed 101 million people, 102 million people, because I set a goal that said I was going to feed 50 million, and then it just grew and grew and grew. But it all came from those changes I made back then. So if you go help somebody else, you're not going to be depressed. You're not going to be overwhelmed. You're going to realize where you are. So that might be a quick 5-step approach.
I appreciate that, Tony. And you said a lot of really great things in there. I know you do something in the morning called priming, which also gets you to state. You do the priming, and then you do the cold plunge. So the entrepreneurs in the room, this is great information. I know this is going to be recorded. Once again, welcome everybody to the show. The nation's #1 business and life strategist. I'm happy to have Tony Robbins here sharing us some really great information. I got maybe 1 or 2 more questions, Tony, and I'd like to try to open up for a couple of questions in the room. Obviously, I want to talk about this amazing book, Money Master the Game. And with respect to entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs they go through this cycle in their life saying, okay, well, I want to build my business, but how? And then I think about what you say, what business are you in? What business do you want to be in? Are you the sales guy? Are you the operations guy? And they say, well, why do you call it a game? Is it winnable? And how can entrepreneurs win at mastering money for their business to try to scale their business?
Really good question. I interviewed 50 of the richest people in the world who are not part of the Lucky Sperm Club, meaning they weren't born into wealth. They started with nothing, multi-billionaires. Right. And I got interviews with some people who hadn't done interviews in 10, 15 years. It was truly amazing. And I got them to tell me insights they've never told anyone. They endorsed the book. People like Ray Dalio. Most people don't even know his name, but if you're in the financial business, he's the largest hedge fund on earth. He's 10 times bigger than the largest hedge fund besides himself. It just $160 billion. And I got them to give me these insights. So the question I asked them, is the game winnable? Because 70% of all trades in the stock market each day are done by computers. It's high frequency trading. And it's unjust, it's unfair, but it's there. What they all told me is it's still totally winnable. It's winnable by anybody. And they walked me through the steps to be able to do it. But he said, in order to win, You got to get in the game. And most people,
Right.
the problem is we all know diversification is the only free lunch, right? You got to diversify because no matter how smart you are, there are going to be challenges. That's basic. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. But most entrepreneurs put all their eggs in one basket in their business.
Sure.
So what I teach them is every person, no matter how successful or unsuccessful you are in business, needs a second business with no employees and not a lot of moving parts and a lot of time. And that's your investment business. And you might say, Tony, I don't have money for my current business. Here's what you have to do. You have to make a decision that says, I'm going to take a percentage of what I earn, even now, even when I have debt, even when I don't have enough money, and I'm going to put it aside and it's not going to the business. I'm going to grow that into a financial freedom because I understand the idea of compounding. I understand that a little bit of money over time can become huge sums of money. I know people that, that have made $200 million, $300 million and are broke, sports stars that I've had to deal with. Mike Tyson made $500 million and went bankrupt, to give you perspective.
Amazing.
Not about earning. What it is making money work for you. And so the fundamental you got to do is, I'll give you an example. There's a guy I write about in the book named Theodore Johnson. He worked for UPS. This is a guy who was no entrepreneur. He was a driver. He had never made more than $14,000 in an entire year in his life. He was working and driving trucks in the 50s and early 60s. This guy retired with $70 million. He gave away $35 million while he was alive. Now, how the hell do you do that making 14 grand a year? He did it the exact same way every one of these guys told me. Right. If someone came to you today and you said, I have no money, but it was the government, and they said, we're going to put a 20% tax on your business, you would scream, you would yell, and you would pay it. And you'd find a way to pay it if you're going to stay in business. What you have to do, and what this man was taught, is they said, listen, I know you have no money at $14,000 a year, but his best friend said, we're going to put a 20% tax on you. We're going to make sure you never see it. It's going to come right off the top. It's going to go in this investment account. You're never going to touch it. Well, compounding that over decades made him $70 million off that tiny amount of money. And I can show you this over and over again in every kind of spreadsheet or example you can imagine. So what I tell people is set up a tax. Ken Blanchard's a friend of mine, wrote the 1 Minute Manager books. Yes. When I was first working on my business, I noticed something. No matter how much money I had, the business needed it, right? Because you're a growing business. And he said to me, Tony, you're coming out with this new book, Unlimited Power. I was 24. He said, I'll give you the best financial advice that was ever given to me. You've got to take a percentage of your income and never touch it, and don't let the business touch it. He said, that money from now on doesn't go to the business. It goes in a separate account. It's never, ever touched because the business will always consume whatever's available. And he said, that's what's going to take care of you in the downtimes. Well, I had no idea how right he would be. I went through the recession in 2000 when the stock market crashed in 1999. If I hadn't had that money, I'd be gone. But that money kept me going during that time and eventually made me financially free. So number one, you've got to pay yourself first. And I know that's basic, but you got to start there. Second, though, where do you put the money? Mm-hmm. And that's what I described the whole book on, is to show you how to get what we call asymmetrical risk reward. How do I spend the least amount of risk with the most amount of upside? Because these great investors don't take big risks like you think they do. They take tiny risks for big rewards. And in the book, I explain how you can do that. And it really comes down to doing this on the side where I'll give you an example. There's a guy, the man I told you, Ray Dalio.
Yes.
Ray Dalio, you had to have a $5 billion net worth and give him $100 million 10 years ago for him to talk to you. Today, you can't, no matter how many billions you have, he won't take your money. So I go sit down with Ray. Turns out he's been a fan of mine for 20 years. At the end of it, I asked him this question. I said, Ray, I want to help average people, entrepreneurs, business people, general population to get financially free. And you just got done telling me how they get screwed over by the business. And I teach this in the book, all the ways people get screwed over, that if you don't know, you're going to get hurt. And I said, you have a strategy that you haven't revealed to anybody that, that absolutely works. It's worked. To give you an idea, for 75 years, it's made money 85% of the time. And I said, I want to know what that strategy is. And he goes, Tony, I can't tell you that. That's my secret sauce. And I said, look, you're going to give away half your net worth. You're an incredibly generous guy. You're not taking more money. Give me your secret sauce. Help me help people. And I got him laughing. And I still get chills when I think about it. He goes, well, I couldn't, I use a lot of leverage. I said, design one without leverage. He goes, well, it wouldn't be perfect. I said, well, your idea not perfect is everybody else's idea perfect. They call him the Steve Jobs of investing, right? So he starts writing this down. We went back and back tested it for 75 years. 85% of the time makes money, but here's the best part. When it does lose money, the most it ever lost was 3.9%, and that was 2008 when the market was down 50%, right?
Wow.
I mean, it's just mind-boggling.
Wow.
So if you could go to Vegas and you can make money 85% of the time, and when you lost, you'd only lose 4%, 3.9%, and when you win, you make 10%, how much would you gamble? How much would you go? So right now, this year, I don't know what it is last 2 days, but the market a couple of days ago was down 9%. It's the worst opening in the history of the stock market in January. $2.4 trillion meltdown. So the market's down 9%. This thing called the All Seasons portfolio is up 0.02%. It's making money. So pick up the book, and there's many strategies, but that's one you can literally do once a year. You rebalance it once a year and forget about it, and you can put yourself in a position where maybe 1 year over the next you might not make the most money, but over the long term, there's nothing more smooth. There's nothing that's made more money with less volatility than that approach.
And you detail this all in the book. So for those of you who have not seen or heard of the book, you have to go get the book. It's Money Master the Game. Tony, I'm sure they can get it anywhere. And Tony, I know we're coming close to our end here, and thank you again for being so generous with your time and sharing all of your time here today. Talk a little bit about the book, about the proceeds. You mentioned that the proceeds are going to, I took some notes here for your bio. You talk about that you've personally fed 59 million meals to people in the U.S. You've matched funds in 2015 through Feed America. And you're doing all of this through just through your philanthropic efforts, which I think is so amazing. One thing I want to just say here, I want to add before we get to our last question. The one thing that's stuck in my mind for 35 years, and I'm 52, so I'm old enough to remember, Tony, back in the day, is that the secret to living is absolutely giving. If there's something that's stuck in my mind that I've learned from you, Tony, and I'm sure it's embedded in the DNA of everybody here, is you have to give without any thought of getting in return, and then watch. It's like the power of compounding. You give and give and give, and but it's going to come back to you. So I think it's great. I think it's tremendous. And you talk about that in the book.
If you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, there's only one way to get wealthy long term. You got to do more for others than anybody else does. If you add more value consistently, not the value you want to add, the value those people want from you. If you do a better job of that than anybody else, you'll dominate the industry, and money will never be a question for yourself. I mean, literally. But yeah, I decided somebody fed my family when I was 11, and I was touched by it. I started feeding when I was 17, 2 families, then 4, then 8, and eventually I got to 1 million people a year. My foundation started feeding 2 million a year, and my wife and I started matching it with 2 million. So we fed 4 million people a year for about 8 years. And then when I wrote this book, I'm interviewing these billionaires, and I'm watching Congress pass a law that cut food stamps by $8 billion, which basically made every family support go out food for a week. So I said, I got to do something about it. So I went to Feeding America and said, we'll do this deal. So we fed 102 million people this last year. We're going to feed another 75 million this year. I'll have fed 250 million people by the end of this year. And it's my passion, is one of my passions, to make things happen. So if anybody buys the book, all the money goes to charity. All of it is designed to help you change your life, but also to take care of people that most of society's forgotten.
That's tremendous, Tony. I thank you. And once again, everybody, Tony Robbins, Money Master the Game. Tony, we want to squeeze in, if we could, maybe, I know there's 3 people who are, other than myself, being a follower for many years.
8 minutes left I got before I have to jump to the next call, but I'll be happy to. Let's do it.
Okay, I'm going to open up the seat. I know there's one or two people I want to let in the seat here that can ask you a question. I'm going to let Mr. Brian Fanzo come in. I know, Carolyn, you're next too. So I'm going to allow Brian to come into the seat here. Vicky, can I do that? Can I allow the person to get into the seat? I've been trying to click on it here. There we go. Brian Fanzo. So his Brian, Brian, 30 seconds. You got Tony Robbins. Tony, this is Brian Fanzo. He is a leader in social media. He's been following you for many, many years, and I wanted to have him hop in the seat.
Big fan. I talk really fast, and I even on my hat it says "Talk fast, tweet faster." And now I can say Tony Robbins talks faster than me. I don't ever have to worry about it again. But my question is pretty simple. I'm a pager-wearing millennial. I'm 34 years old. Your message resonates with me, but I'm curious, from millennials, when they hear your message, how does it resonate differently from a millennial perspective than previous generations, as the rate of change that we live in today is so crazy and so much different? But thanks so much for doing this.
Well, thanks, man. Brian, listen.
Thanks, Brian.
I found that millennials are more hungry because they expect change to happen. They know change is going to happen, and they know that if they don't take control of their own life, life is going to take control over you. I mean, look at it. Technology is such a great gift in our lives, but most people, technology is running their life. They're not running it. And I tell people, you got to use technology, not let technology use you. There's a balance in that element. But I think millennials, they're just now coming to the stage of life. 35 to 55 is the stage of life where, when you're in your 20s, you're invincible. Everything's going to go perfect. You're going to be president of the United States. You're going to make $1 billion. And, and you're the most handsome or beautiful thing, and you got the best abs that exist. But when you get to about 35 and you start usually having a family, you start to realize, holy shit, there's some things I haven't quite mastered yet. And you get serious about mastering some areas that matter, like relationships, like business, like finances, like just the joy of your life in a whole different level. And so I found millennials are very hungry because the leading edge are now pushing on 35 years old. But what I also find, though, is humans are humans. We have the same needs. We all need certainty. We need to know we can do something. We all need uncertainty. We need variety. We need surprise. We need to feel significant, like our life matters. We need to feel loved, and we need to love. We need to grow. If you don't grow, you die. And we need to contribute beyond ourselves, or life is incredibly boring. So when you meet all 6 of those needs, it doesn't matter what generation you're talking to. I just did a seminar in LA. We had 10,000 people there from 58 countries. And we translated 6 languages simultaneously, and most people won't sit for a 3-hour movie that somebody paid $300 million to make, and we did 50 hours there. Anybody can vote with their feet and leave. No one leaves. And, people are on their feet literally 14 hours later saying this is one of the greatest experiences of my life. Usher told me never sit for multiple days, couldn't do it for even a day. 4 days later, he's out of his mind. Oprah says, I can't sit for 2 hours anywhere. Right. 12 hours later, standing on her feet. So there's a way to engage people when you meet their needs that will change everything. And I think every entrepreneur should learn those needs and how to apply them in your business.
That's great. Hey, Tony, one more question and then we're done. I want to wrap it up. This is Carolyn Rim. Carolyn is a super rock star, motivational speaker. Her and I have been connecting on Facebook for some time. When I told her, she's part of my network, when I told her you were going to be on, she literally tripped over her fingers to get to this. So I wanted to give her a chance to hop in. So Carolyn, we got about 30 seconds. Please ask you a question of Tony Robbins.
Her audio still isn't
working. Her audio's out. Carolyn, your audio's out. Plug in real quick.
Yeah, I don't think. Did you have somebody else you wanted to use? Because you don't have.
Carolyn, I think your audio's out. I gotta drop you out, dear. She's gonna jump.
Yeah, no, we can't, sweetie. Sorry,
I gotta reach out.
Did you type it?
Sorry.
Yes, you can probably type it. So, I think we're good. So, Tony, I'm gonna wrap up. Again, I want to thank you so much for being so generous with your time. I have one more personal question, then I'm done. You've done so much for so many people. For me personally, my kids, I have all your DVDs. I mean, I'm fanboying a little bit, so I'm just sorry about that. But I own all your DVD. I'm so generous. You're so generous with your time. You've accomplished so much. You have a beautiful wife, beautiful family. You've given your time. You've given to help feeding people. I love the Basket Brigade. We are going to inject live streaming into that. I'll talk to Sarah and see if I can help you spread that word. I'm going to do that. I'm very excited about it. But you've accomplished so much. What else does Tony Robbins want to accomplish? What else is left to live your dream?
I want to feed 1 billion people in the next 10 years. I want to create sustainability for a whole segment of that population, take care of themselves. I'm providing fresh water for 100,000 people a day right now in India, because waterborne disease kills more children than anything else in the countries in India. So I'll feed 250,000 a day, and I'll be up to 1 million a day by the 10-year mark on that as well. I'm creating a foundation for teaching anyone the tools that I have, especially therapists around the world, because so many people are addicted to antidepressants and they're still totally depressed. So I've never lost a suicide in literally 38 years. Knock on wood. Doesn't mean I won't someday, but I never had thousands, and we followed up. So I want to leave that part of my legacy. I have 4 kids that I adore, and I've got 3 grandkids, and I've got specific things I want to support them and accomplish in them. But the most important thing I really want is I'm committed at this stage of my life to helping people to really end suffering. And you can't end suffering by what you accomplish. You only end suffering when you realize there's only 2 places you can live emotionally: suffering states or beautiful states. Beautiful states aren't just happiness, it's joy, it's passion, it's determination, it's courage, it's hunger. It's the states that when you're in them, you do what's right and you feel good about it. Then there's suffering states: pissed off, frustrated, sad, depressed, overwhelmed, stressed. And I realized that suffering is possible to stop. Everybody suffers. It shows up. But you can end it immediately if you realize that all your suffering is because you're obsessing about yourself. Whenever you're upset, you think, oh, I'm really worried about my kids. What you're really worried about is you feel like you failed your kids. It's about me, me, me. And I can tell you, when I get up on the stage and I'm up there for 50 hours, people go, how do you do that? Because I'm not in Tony. I'm in you. I'm there to serve. And when I'm focused on serving, I don't suffer. So I decided to bring that Tony Robbins guy home so I don't suffer at home either. And it's been a great gift in my life. I hope there's a great little book out that I think your audience would enjoy called Untethered Soul. It's a popular book, but it's probably the closest thing I've seen to what I teach in this area that you go pick up and just read. And I encourage people to do it. I know billionaires that still suffer. And you have to end that yourself. Things are going to happen in your life. You're going to, you could lose an arm. You could get in a car accident. You could lose a child, God forbid. You could be in a divorce. So many things could happen. So the most important decision I believe in life is decide you're going to stay in a beautiful state, because from that place you can deal with anything. You can make anything better. So that's part of my target going forward.
And that's the mission of all of. And ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't done it already, please sign up. Unleash the power within. Business mastery. Go to TonyRobbins.com. I mean, it's a forever library, a deep brook of information. Make sure you sign up for one of his all of his seminars. Tony, I want to say thank you again. And I know Vicky's been so quiet here. Vicky, did you want to say just a goodbye or a quick hello to Tony before he exits out?
We just appreciate you being here. And if there's a link you'd like me to put in the chat box, I'd love to do that for you. And it's a pleasure meeting you, Tony. You've been inspired. I know you couldn't see all these comments, but people are incredibly inspired and really appreciate you being here.
I've seen
and we'd
some
love
of them.
To have you back again.
Let the people know, thank you for the early birthday offerings. I have been reading them all while we're doing this, so please thank them. And thanks for you guys are doing. And if they can go to TonyRobbins.com, or they can follow me on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. I'd love to have anybody who wants to come to the event. But if they're interested in changing their life, I've got some fun tools. And I hope they'll just look me up if it makes sense. If not, hopefully they'll be stimulated to find somebody that will be right for them. So thanks for having me on, guys.
Tony, thank you so much. Remember, live life with passion.
And join us again, Tony. We'd love to have you on again.
Tony, I'll reach out to you again. We'll have another one. Take care. Bye now.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was our interview with Tony Robbins. And